Welcome to another episode of Celebrating Southbridge. I'm Ron Sanangelo, Southbridge Town Manager, and I'm here today to talk to you about a very important issue. We're going to be talking about elections. But before I start, I wanted to let the citizens of Southbridge know that we've created a new Facebook page called the Southbridge Town Hall. And we'd really love you to like that page because I'm giving out constant information about upcoming events and things that are happening here in Southbridge. So again, it's Southbridge Town Hall. There's two of them, so make sure you see the one that has about 800 likes. Plus, you'll see a lot of information directly from me on that page. So today I have a special guest. She's our town clerk. She's been here for a number of years, very experienced in the area of elections. Maddie Bonadies, I got to say the last name right. Welcome to the show.
Why, thank you very much, Mr. Sanangelo. I appreciate that.
Well, it's great to have you on. And this is an issue I think that people kind of get excited about, particularly this year. It's sort of a hot issue with all the elections come up, particularly the presidential election.
That's correct. And we are fastly approaching the presidential primary, which is going to be scheduled for March 1st of this year. It's Tuesday. And as everybody can see from the commercials, there's a lot of hot topics. Everybody wants to get out and vote. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware that they can register to vote up until February 10th. That includes changing your party affiliation. So if you are registered as a Democrat, just be aware that you can only vote on the Democrat ballot. If you're registered as a Republican, you can only register or vote as a Republican. There's a new party this year that's causing a little bit of confusion. It's called the United Independent Party. And that's a new party affiliation. However, there is nobody listed on that ballot. So if you're registered as a United Independent Party, you'll have to pull a ballot for that party, but there's nobody listed on that. So if you have any concerns about how you registered as, or if you want to change your party, give the office a call at 508-764-5408 because we can change it up until February 10th.
That sounds great. We're going to talk a lot about specific elections and things that are coming up. But first of all, I want the citizens of Southbridge to understand what exactly the town clerk does. So we know we have an office here in Town Hall. It's called the town clerk's office. What is it that Maddie and her team of staff, what do you actually do, and how does it benefit the people who pay taxes here in Southbridge?
We do a variety of things. We are responsible for all the births, deaths, marriages that occur in Southbridge, or if somebody passes away or is born outside of Southbridge, if they're born in Worcester or if they die in Worcester or Boston, the records come here if they reside here. So we keep records. We have records that date back to 1746, and we keep those forever. So if you're into genealogy, we have all those records. We help people with genealogy. I'm the town clerk. I'm also a justice of the peace. So we do marriage ceremonies either here or off-site or on weekends. I'm also a notary public, so if anybody needs anything notarized that doesn't have to do with wills or real estate, they can come in and it's a free service that we do. We also issue permits, many types of permits. We have raffle permits, so if you're an organization that's going to be running any type of raffle, you're by law required to file for a raffle permit. We have junk collector licenses. We have special permits that are approved by the planning board or the zoning board, and we keep those on file. We also do, which is right now, the census, which we are mandated annually to perform the local annual street list book, which requires us to send out census forms, which everybody should have received a form late last week, early this week. So we ask that you please fill that out, drop it in the mail, put a stamp on it, even though the back of it says postage paid, it is not. Drop it in the office here, or you can also drop it in the tax collector's office or the payment box outside. But it's very, very important that the census be filled out because the more people that we have registered in town, the more money we get. Right. And you could speak to that.
No question about that. Now, a big part, I don't know if you left out or we didn't quite get to, the election process. What exactly do you do as it relates to the election process? I mean, you take care of who's voting and people come in to register to vote there.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about the actual process part of that job.
Okay, so if once you're 18, you're eligible to vote. If you're a citizen of the United States, you're obviously eligible to vote. You can vote register to vote many different ways. You can come in to the office. You can call and request a application to be sent to you, and then you can mail it back. You can do it online now. You could just go onto the mass.gov website and register to vote that way. You can register to vote at the RMV. So there's many different ways that you can register to vote, and of course we ask everybody to register to vote. So this is a big, very big year with the presidential election.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm a new person to the town, right? Think of that, and I have registered someplace else. And my registration is in another state or another town. Can I vote here, or what do I have to do here to switch over to be a Southbridge voter?
Okay, so if you are moving here, the first thing you should do is to register to vote. Whether you coming in, give us a call, go into the RMV to change your driver's license, you could switch your voter registration to the town that you now live in. If you've lived in, say, Sturbridge, but you want to vote in the presidential election, you haven't had time to change your address, they give you 6 months. So say within the last 6 months, you've moved to Southbridge, but you're still registered in Sturbridge, at the presidential primary, you can go vote in Sturbridge.
So how long before the election do I have to switch so that I can vote in an election? Can I do it?
20 days.
So if I don't switch my registration 20 days prior to that registration, I can't vote here in Southbridge. I'd have to go back to wherever I was before
Correct.
to vote.
Right, as long as you say that you've moved within the 6 months.
Okay.
So yes, February 10th at 8 p.m. is the deadline. So whether you want to change your party affiliation, register to vote, you need to do it by February 10th for this particular election in March.
So let's talk about something. I want to come back to the election because that's the big part of it. But
Okay.
let's talk a little bit about some more of the general things there, right? So people might need their own birth certificate to be able to present to somebody. So they would come in here, they would ask you, they would give their information of when they were born. Then I assume they'd have to show their license or some identification to prove that's who they are. And then there's a fee, I would take it to get
Yes.
a, tell me, how much does it cost? How easy is it? Can I just walk in, say I want my birth certificate, and you have it right there? How does that work?
Yep. So if you want it to be ready and before when you come in, you just give us a call. Well, obviously we'll have it ready for you. For fee for a vital record is $10, and the town takes cash or check. So all the birth certificates, marriage certificates, and death certificates are $10 each. The only difference is for a marriage license, when you come in to apply for a marriage license, it's $25, and that includes a copy being mailed to you once you are married.
Do I have to let you know if let's say I'm going to get married, and next week I decide I'm going to get married? How quickly can I come in and get married? I mean, is this? I imagine you get blood tests and things like that, right?
No blood tests anymore. Since
No, okay.
2004, you no longer need a blood test. However, we do need by law 3 days. So
Okay.
say you come in today. Today is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're not open on Sunday. The earliest you could probably get married is Monday, because we need to hold it for 3 days per state rules, and then you can use it within 60 days.
So this is not Vegas. We can't get married
Oh,
on the
no.
spot. We gotta have
No.
at least some time and thought and some time. So if you're interested to get married, you'd stop in and see the town clerk's office, and they could arrange just in a couple of days for you to get married. And it sounds like you don't need too much in terms of records. You just come in,
Prove
your identification, and that's
That's
it.
right, because you're signing under the pains and penalties of perjury that what you're putting on that document is true. So you could be prosecuted if we've had that happen once where a gentleman came in and said it was his first marriage, and evidently he was leading a couple of different lives, and he was prosecuted for that.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
So-
just be careful, beware.
Yeah, beware. Don't get married to a whole bunch of people at one time. Yeah.
Right.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. Anyway, so you can come in and do marriage. You can do death certificates. If you needed a record for some reason, you get a death certificate.
Correct.
Those you could get immediately, pretty much.
Yes.
Just come in.
Yes. Yep. There's a new system that just went online back in 2013 that we've all done electronic death certificates now, where the doctor sends it to the funeral director. The funeral director does his work. They send it to the Board of Health to get a burial permit. Then they, in turn, shoot it, push a button, and then it comes over to us. And so it's all electronic now.
Nice. So it's quick. So you just literally print it out.
Yes.
Is really all you have to do.
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
Okay, so it sounds like you got a pretty busy office. How many members of staff do you have in your office?
We have three full-time
three.
staff. and
there's-
we're busy all the time.
Yeah, well, I know we use one of your services. You have someone who speaks Spanish.
That's correct.
And in town hall, we have 2 employees who do speak Spanish, so there's somebody in your office that I know can help out on occasion if you're a Latino, if you speak Spanish. We do have a couple of employees here that speak Spanish. Please come and see in the town clerk's office, and we'll get you to where you have to be and try to help, answer any questions, right?
That's great, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yep.
And then I want to talk about the election. So we got some
Okay.
really hot election things going on here,
Right.
okay? We talked about how to register to vote. You can register to vote in a variety of different ways. You don't have to come in. You can actually mail it in these days.
Right, correct.
But we got a number of elections this year. I know the big one sort of on everyone's radar is the presidential election, right?
Correct.
So let's first talk about the date of the presidential primary.
Yep.
And I guess people might be curious as to what the process is. So, if somebody wins in the state, how does that work?
Yeah, that's fine. So the first election this year is going to be the presidential primary that we just spoke about. That's going to be March 1st. Then we also have, which we can't forget, which is very important in town, is the local election.
Well, tell us about that.
Okay, that's-
Who's in the local election ballot? Who's running?
Okay, well, we don't know
I
that
mean
yet.
people, I mean
Okay.
spots.
Yep. So the local election is June 28th, 2016. That's a Tuesday. We have nomination papers ready and available right now. We just put those out on the counter on Monday. So there's going to be 3 openings for town council for 3 years, 1 position for 2 years on town council because of Council Moriarty's resignation. For school committee, we have 2 positions open for 3 years, and we have 1 position open for 1 year due to a resignation as well. We have 1 position open for Southbridge Housing Authority and 1 for Bay Path. And I believe that's it for this year.
Okay, so if I want to run for office, I want to
Yep.
be a council member, I want to be a school committee member, what do I got to do? They just come in and say, I want to be one, and
Yep.
how does that work?
Nope, if you want to pull out papers to run for any type of office, whether it be school committee, council, or any of the others, you come into the office to file for your nomination papers. You need 39 signatures townwide. So we give you the nomination papers. You come back before May 10th with 39 signatures. We certify the signatures that they are good signatures. They all have to be voters of the town of Southbridge.
Okay.
And then you just come back in, sign in the book, and you are on the ballot.
Do those people have to be, like, if I want to run it, well, I guess in here, a lot of people probably don't understand this, but in this town, if you're running for town council school committee, you don't have to be a Republican or Democrat.
That's correct.
It's a nonpartisan election. So
That's correct.
tell me a little bit about that. What's that all about? How
Yeah.
come you don't have to be involved in a party for local stuff, but you do for state and federal?
Yep, well, the town laws or the charter says that it's no party affiliation needed for local elections. So, I mean, some candidates do get the backing from the Democrat and Republican town committees, but you don't need to register, you don't need to state your party affiliation when you pull out papers. It's not.
And these 39 people that have to sign, they could be Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter.
correct.
So
Nope.
it could be unaffiliated, it could be anyone who's a registered voter would sign your petition, okay, and that on it puts you on the ballot.
That's right.
What
30
happens if 20 people decide they want to run and get petitions? Is that okay?
Absolutely, the more the merrier, and that's a race.
Right. So if you're out there and you're interested in being involved in government, it's not all that hard, it sounds. 39 people
Yep,
get their
before May
signatures, and
10th.
all of a sudden you can be a politician, I guess, is what it amounts to,
There you
right?
go. That's true. So if anybody needs any information on that, or just feel free to give us a call, and we'll help you along with the process. But don't be afraid to run.
So the election process itself is sort of interesting because it costs money. People don't realize that you have to have workers at the polls,
Right.
you have to have extra staff, you have to be open long hours. Tell me about that. What is it generally, and I'm not looking for a specific dollar amount, but what does it generally cost? Let's say we have the presidential primary coming up.
Yep.
What does it cost the town of Southbridge, and what kind of staff do you have involved for a primary, for the actual election day activities?
So for basic, medium fee for an election is probably, you're looking at around $10,000, because we need to have at least 40 election workers. We have to have police officers. We have greeters. We have people in our staff. And then we have the board of registrars that do come in on election day, but they're paid a yearly stipend. So but yeah, it's a lot of money. Then you pay to program the machines. For the local election, we have to pay for our ballots. For the state one, we do not. But we have to pay for the AutoMark machine, which is a machine for handicapped accessibility, whether you are blind, it's Braille. If you're deaf, it has the Braille. If you're blind, it has the headphones, so you can vote without needing assistance if you want to come in by yourself.
Right.
So those machines need to be programmed every election, and so this year we have 4 elections. So it's a very expensive.
So these are electronic machines?
Yes.
They at the very end of the night, they kind of spit out the totals and what happened?
That's right. We have the automark machines, which a lot of the cities and towns in the state have those. So all you do is fill in the little circle, then you put it into your machine, and the machine will read it. And at the end of the night, it tallies the machine on a receipt.
So for those of you voting the first time, it sounds like a pretty simple process.
Absolutely.
You get the sheet, they hand you a sheet who to vote for, you fill in the dashes, I think.
No, you just fill in the little circle,
Little circles
oval.
of who you want to vote for, and then you stick it in the machine at the end of
Absolutely,
that?
you stick it in the machine, and it takes it and it counts it out at the end of the night, and you just walk away.
So a pretty quick process to come in, vote, and get in and out, right?
That's correct. And I also just want to explain that we have absentee voting available as well.
Well, what is absentee voting?
Okay.
Because maybe there's some citizens that never voted by absentee. What does that mean?
If you are if you feel that you can't get out on election day, if you're afraid that maybe the weather is going to hinder you from coming in, or you're elderly and you can't walk to the polls or walk through the polls, we have absentee voting. So what they do is they could just call us up for an application. We'll send them an application, they sign that, send it back to us. They can choose either for an election or all elections this year, and we'll mail out the forms. Once we receive that form back, every time we get a ballot or it's election time, we just mail it to you. And
So
you vote.
if you're going on vacation and you
Yes.
know you're going, and during that time there's going to be the presidential primary, and you want to vote, you can vote early. Now they're not going to count your vote until
Until the polls
close that day, but at least you have an opportunity to participate, even if you're not going to be in state for that day.
That's correct. If you have students that are away at college, the parents can come in as a family member and apply for an application, and we'll mail the ballot to your student at college.
Right.
So that's easy enough. You have to do that. You have to vote by absentee the day before the election. So in this case here, it'll be February 29th is the last day, noontime.
So I imagine a lot of college students would use if you want to vote, they would use the absentee ballot because they're
Correct.
away on campus and they could still vote. You just got to, I imagine, do you have to apply for or send in some paperwork to get an absentee ballot?
Yep, you just have to, even if you want to just fax us something, as long as we have a signature,
Right.
we can mail the ballot to you. If you're registered as unenrolled, which most people refer to as independent, but in the state of Massachusetts, we call it unenrolled, you have to determine which ballot you want in a primary.
Right.
So you have to tell us if you want the Republican ballot, the Democrat ballot, the United Independent ballot, or the Green Rainbow.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the party thing, right? So we
Okay.
have Republicans, Democrats. Again, that really doesn't factor too much in our local elections, but it clearly factors in state and federal elections,
Correct.
right? So I imagine your office has to be very neutral. You can't be involved in one side or the other.
Correct.
Tell me about that process and somebody counts votes at the end of the night, right? I imagine there's a Republican registrar and a Democrat registrar to make sure it's all fair and
Correct.
and it's above board. So tell us a little bit about that process that ensures that whatever happens in your office comes out to be fair and reasonable and everybody has faith in that process.
Correct. All right, well, a lot of people think that we count the ballots at the end of the night, which we don't count the ballots. The machine has actually totaled all the ballots. So what a tabulator will do at the end of the night is they go in and it's a receipt, kind of, it's a long list, and they just write down the numbers. The only time that we'd actually have to hand count is, God forbid, that there's a recount, and then that's when you have to, do a hand count and stuff, and then that's when you have observers and people who are checking off and everything. But we have to, first off, we are mandated by federal law, which is the HAVA, Help America Vote Act, in 2002, that we need to have a Spanish-speaking person at every precinct, not at every polling location, but we need to have one person who is bilingual or speaks bilingual at every precinct. So we need that. We also need to have, pretty much we try to have the same amount of Republicans and Democrats and unenrolled to put them in the mix so that the way the precinct has a little bit of everybody in there.
What if I'm handicapped and I'm blind, for instance, and I
Okay.
want to vote?
Yep.
And I come to the polls and I want to vote. How does that work? Who helps me fill in the circles? How does that work? I mean,
Okay, yep.
I need somebody to trust. I want them to vote the way I want them to vote. How does that work?
Right. Okay, so you could either bring in a person that you do trust that can go in with you. The warden will just make a note that John Doe had Mary Smith help him vote because of he's blind. So, or we have a machine. So if you are blind and you come into the polling location, they'll direct you to the machine, and the machine you would just put your headsets on, and it'll direct you on how to mark the ballot. The ballot will then spit back out with it all marked, and then you bring it to the warden at your precinct, and they'll feed it into the machine.
Wow. So let's assume we get to the end of the night and we have all the ballots and machines all kind of spit out the numbers of what they are. You guys all have tallies, you calculate up the numbers. How long does that usually take? Usually election polls close at like 8 o'clock at night,
That's
right?
correct. Yep, we're
So
open 7 to 8.
by what time
9.
about did you get the results?
Usually, well, the results are instant. Once they put in the ender card to end the election into the machine, it spits out the tallies. So the warden is directed to put one out on the door of the armory, so that way their public can see what it is. Then they take another one of those receipts or those slips, they put it into and send it with a police officer, so we have them. And then at the end of the night, they bring all the other material back into town hall, all the ballots and everything, and they stay locked away in the vault. And we have the official ballots, official count that night. And then for state elections and federal elections, we need to notify the Associated Press. I have numbers that I need to call, and so that the numbers that you see on TV, we have already notified them of our numbers.
So I imagine you guys on a state election, for instance, the local election, we get the results, we all know I'm here, whatever, but
Yep.
but usually you have to report to the Secretary of State. That's
Correct.
usually in most states, that's the
That's
sort of
correct.
the leader of the whole election process.
Yes.
Are you required when you get your totals to immediately transmit them to the Secretary of State? And what's the relationship between the Secretary of State's office and the town clerk's office here in Southbridge?
Well, the Secretary of the Commonwealth is actually my boss. We take all the rules, all the rulings from him. So we do have, in a presidential primary, we have 7 days to send the results. We have to do it on the computer. On a regular state election with this no primary, we have 10 days. Because we have to wait for a presidential election, we have overseas ballots that we need to wait for. So we have to get the total count for them. That's why we have the 10-day waiting period. But for a primary, we don't have that fluctuation.
So if everybody has 10 days, how does everybody know the results right away? I mean, it seems like the night of the election, you find out what the results
Right.
are and who's winning. How do they do that if you don't have to turn in your results for 10 days?
Well, the only way that the 10 days, if there's a ballot from overseas or something, if it would come into play if there was a recount or anything like that, then we would have to count it. But
So you send some original numbers out quickly, and then
Right.
it's the oddballs that may go in later, is what you're
correct,
saying.
correct,
Okay.
yes.
So Secretary of State's your boss, and I imagine that,
Well, all the voters in Southbridge are my boss.
yeah, well, in theory, yeah, because they
Yeah.
elect you, right?
Yeah, that's
But
correct.
in terms of day-to-day operations or
Yes.
activities, he's your boss. So I imagine that everything is done electronically in terms of communicating, results and things. And I'm not sure even a lot of the databases of voters that you have in your office.
Yep.
Sometimes that's connected to a state system.
It
Is that
is.
true?
Yes, it is.
So if
Yep.
you register to vote here in town, automatically the state can see who's registering in different parties and everything. They can see all those totals, so they
Correct.
know statewide how many Republicans, Democrats, how many
That's correct.
independent party. All those numbers are there, and I think the state can actually tell too if you voted. Can they tell?
Oh, absolutely. We have a computer program that's called the VRIS. It's the Voter Registration Information System, and that is for the whole state. All 351 cities and towns have this system. So once we register everybody to vote in that. We keep track of who votes at every election, so they know who votes. We know who votes. We know how you voted. We don't know who you voted for. People are a little antsy about that. But if you pull a Republican ballot, we just know that you pulled the Republican ballot.
Right.
We don't know who you voted for on that Republican
Well, that's
ballot.
how Republicans and Democrats actually know who to send material to in some respects,
Correct.
right? Because if you voted the last 5 times, you're likely to vote this time.
Correct.
If you didn't vote the last 5 times, then why are candidates sending out information to you because they don't think you're going to come, right?
Correct.
So you're more valuable if you vote because people know you vote and they're willing to give you information about themselves because they think you're going to vote again. And so they kind of know if you're in play or not for elections, right?
Correct, that's right. And we, on a local level, can run reports for local, not just local elections, but state elections and everything, but locally here. So you're right, like candidates that do come in that are running on local level, they'll come in and say, can I have the list of voters who voted in XY election?
Yeah, last
And so-
two elections
yeah.
or last three elections.
And
Right?
we can run that report for them.
That makes it a lot easier for candidates so they don't have to spend a lot of money sending direct mail to people who are never going to vote, right?
Correct,
Yeah.
right.
So it's interesting. So how about general numbers? And I'm not, again, looking for specifics.
Yep.
About how many registered voters do we have here in Southbridge?
We have about 11,000 registered voters in South.
11,000. And let's say we're going to go for presidential. And again, I'm putting you under spot a little
Nope.
bit, right? So the presidential election, about what percentage of those 11,000 people will vote in the presidential? That's usually your highest turnout, right?
Exactly, it is.
So it's going to be high, and maybe that's unfair because you haven't had one in 4 years.
Yeah.
So we could do, if you want, you can kind of give me a general idea
I'd
of.
say 70%.
So 70% in a state, in a presidential.
In presidential.
But now if we talk about a local
Local.
election, we're probably talking 45%, I guess, more?
No, probably 15%.
15% of all the voters who are registered here in
Mm-hmm.
Southbridge.
Yep.
For an election to town council, local election, you get about 15% turnout. Oh, that's horrible.
It is sad.
That's
why, and we try. I mean, you could vote, like, you vote absentee if you're going to be away on vacation, or if you're not going to be here, if you're going to be in the hospital, or if you're going to, anything. Just, we could take care of that for
So
you.
if you're out there watching this show, we have 100% of the people who are registered voters here in town, and not everybody's a registered voter,
That's correct.
but of that 13,000, I think you said, are registered voters. We're only doing 15% of those people are deciding the type of government you have. If you're comfortable with that, great. If you're not, maybe you need to get out of the polls and vote because the government has a huge impact on your life, right?
Absolutely.
So it's government who decides what the tax rates are, right?
Yeah.
It's government who decides what town ordinance are in place and what you can do with your property to some degree. So government plays a valuable part in all different parts of your life. Yet if you don't vote, you have no control. At least if you vote, you can extend a message to them, the general kind of things you want them to support and not support. And I know that elected officials pay more attention to people they know vote than they do that they know that don't vote.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's the truth. And you hear that sometimes on the dais, that they say, there was one counselor that actually did say, if you don't vote, don't call me, because it's the people that vote. So please, register to vote, come out to vote. If you need any help, any assistance, we're there. We're also mandated because of our Spanish population that our ballots are both in English and Spanish. There's not too many cities and towns in the state of Massachusetts, so there's shouldn't be a problem with the language. You should be able to read all the ballots.
There's always this concern that people who are not citizens are going to vote. You keep hearing that nationwide that these people are voting. But in fact, if you vote and you're not a citizen, you can be punished in theory for that. I don't know that they
That's a
really
federal
enforce it, but it is a federal offense
Absolutely.
and it's a serious charge. I frankly haven't heard of anybody getting punished under that, but in theory, if they choose to do that and they catch you, you could get in some significant trouble, right?
Correct, yes.
Right.
Yep. And I mean, everybody a few years back was pushing that we had to ask everybody for IDs. We can't ask everybody for IDs because that goes against the law. I mean, am I against showing IDs? Absolutely
Again,
not.
that's Massachusetts law, because
Correct.
I know in Connecticut, everybody's required to show their license when they go to
Yep.
vote. Here, you don't have to do that.
Here we don't
So
have to.
It changes on a state-by-state basis.
Right.
So if you came in to Southbridge from some other state, it might be different. So you need to learn kind of the Massachusetts laws as it
Correct.
relates to voting, right?
We can only ask for IDs on different occasions. If this is the first time that you're voting in the state of Massachusetts, we ask for ID because it's marked right next to your name, the ID needed. If you haven't answered the census back in years and you become inactive, you need to show proof that you are still a resident of Massachusetts. Then we could ask for ID. But if you're just coming in to vote, this is your 10th time in Southbridge coming to vote, Ron San Angelo. We're not asking you for your ID. You're just saying you live at 1 Main Street, and we'll just check your name off, give you a ballot, and off you go.
Now, I don't even have to be a taxpayer, right? I can live in an apartment, not be
Absolutely.
a taxpayer, still get the vote, right?
Absolutely.
So if you're a taxpayer,
18 or
obviously, and you
over.
own property in town and you actually live, you get to vote. Now, if you own property in town and you don't live here, you still can't vote, right?
That's correct. You
Even though I
can't.
pay taxes in Southbridge, if I don't live here,
That's right.
I can't vote, right?
That's correct.
But if I live here, I don't have to pay taxes. I still get to vote, right?
That's correct.
So it's sort of interesting. It's
Yeah.
the key thing is you have to live here.
That's right.
Right,
Yep.
right.
So if you're in an apartment and you don't have excise tax or you don't have property tax or anything, you can still register to vote. You don't need to pay any kind of taxes in order to vote.
So kind of summarize. I want to kind of summarize
Okay.
and correct me if I'm wrong on some of the things you do. So
Okay.
if a citizen needs a birth certificate, you'll go to the town clerk's office. If you need a death certificate for some reason, town clerk's office is the place to go. If you choose to get married, looking to change your life and become married, the town clerk's office is where you go to file that paperwork, and she can even actually do the wedding ceremony for you, right? If you're looking to register to vote, you can either do it manually through just sending in a form, or you can come into the town clerk's office and register to vote. If you need information from the town clerk's office in terms of you want to run for office, you want to know how many Republicans there are, how many Democrats there are, and how many independents, information about what to do to run for office, you're going to come into the town clerk's office. So, and the nice thing about it is if you're Spanish, we have somebody right in the office that can actually translate for you. So that's
Yes, yep.
really, really positive. So the
Definitely.
town clerk does a lot of things here in town. So it is a pretty office, and I think this year you're going to be busier than ever.
Busier than ever. Absolutely. And look forward to it.
So we got the 3 big races coming up that we know right off the bat. We have
Yep.
presidential primary coming up.
We have the
We got
local
the
election.
local elections.
We have the state primary, which is going to be in September as
Okay.
well. And that is going to be on a different day. Just want to bring that to your attention. Instead of a Tuesday like it normally is, it's going to be on a Thursday. It's going to be on September 8th of this year. And then the presidential election in November. So 4 big elections coming up.
4 big elections. Folks, this government, in effect, should be controlled, in effect, by the people who live here. So if you register to vote, you get a say in how your government's going to run. That's what democracy is all about. That's what makes this country so different than so many countries throughout the world. So I want to encourage you to come in, register to vote, fill out the form, register to vote. Whatever it needs, get involved in local government. We'd love to have you. Again, I'm Ron Sanangelo, the town manager. Maddie, I want to thank you for coming in and
wanna thank
discussing
you.
these issues with us.
I want to thank you because, like I said, there are deadlines, and I wanted people to know that all these options are available to you. So thank you very much for
You're
letting me-
welcome. And again, look at Southbridge Town Hall on Facebook. Look at the information. Again, you'll see 2 town hall pictures. Please look at the site, like it, and we'll be pumping out information. What I'm trying to do is keep the government of Southbridge as transparent as possible to you. So I hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you. And again, it was a pleasure to have you here on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.